From meme to utility, Floki has it all. NFT metaverse game called Valhalla. Floki University, DeFi, charity, and shopping. Floki is governed by the people, for the people. Floki, together there is no stopping us. Floki is governed by the people, for the people. Floki, together there is no stopping us.
Good afternoon, everyone. BC Richfield here, coming to you live from London. Just having a couple of technical problems. Bear with me just for one moment. Okay, there we are. We should be back now. Some crazy feedback loop going in there. Good afternoon, everyone. BC Ritual coming to you live from London. Just gone a couple of minutes past midday here, making it just gone 1100 UTC. So we've got quite a cool and slightly different show coming up for you today to celebrate the Bitcoin halving and the rundown to it. So with that in mind, we're going to be getting a good friend of mine and obviously a colleague of mine over at the Burb Nest, Razoon, on to share his thoughts as well. He's going to be with us in about 10, 15 minutes to look over. So I just wanted to kind of start today slightly differently than we would. So for those of you that are regulars to the stream will know that obviously I'm a technical analyst for the Burb Nest, as well as obviously for my own trading. And I specialize in price action trading, mostly intraday. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have long-term views on this market and thoughts as well, but I do look at it very much from a technical analysis perspective. So I'm going to share my thoughts on that, but I actually wanted to just start off because the Bitcoin halving is such a big event, right? There's been a lot of hype around this, and you know, a lot of people see it as this really kind of big up-only mechanism, while other people kind of have some different thought processes on it as well. Okay, so what I wanted to do is just share my thoughts with you, but just to kind of give a quick rundown, much more kind of along the lines of just a little bit about what it's about. Okay, so and where my kind of thought process sits on this. And then I want to share some charts with you guys and show you kind of what I'm looking at from a technical point of view. So I've just got a chart up here. So this is showing the dates along the bottom and then when the halving events have taken place. Now, if we take a look at this, so from first halving here, 2012, moving up, obviously this is an event that happens every 4 years. Okay, so what it is, it's actually built into the code of Bitcoin. All right, so it happens every 4 years, written into the code. The idea of this, that the rewards for miners are what are cut in half, right? Now the idea of that is simple, really. You only have a maximum 21 million supply of Bitcoin. What this does is it reduces the pace in which the Bitcoin enters the market, and therefore it creates more scarcity. All right, so with that, when we look at this chart, we can see quite clearly that back here when we had the first halving, this is where the all-time high was sat. Now we can see that we were below that. Okay, so we came in, price came down, the halving was here, and then we can see the upwards move that we had afterwards. Okay, if we then look before the second halving here, all right, similar situation, very, very close actually, this one. Move that up a little bit more, but very, very close, as we can see here, to the all-time high, but hadn't taken it. All right, then we can see what happened here. We had the halving. Look at this again, slight pullback, and then ultimately we saw a lot of price action to the upside. Looking to the third halving, all right, something similar. We had the all-time high, we had this run up in the build-up before, then we had that market pullback here, okay, and then we had that run. Now, a couple of things that kind of strike me here really as we look at this. One is that each time we can see we didn't really have a pullback after this one. We had the halving, price action went a little bit flat, and then we really, really ripped, okay? Now, the next halving, we were that much closer to the previous all-time high, all right? So that, for me, is something of significance that we want to look at on a technical side. This time, we kind of came a little bit further away, but the pump was a little bit less. Now, what's really interesting for me anyway with this side is that if we look over here, we can see that with this halving, obviously we all know we've recently clipped the all-time high. We've done it before the halving event, all right? And that's not to bring kind of unnecessary negativity to this. This is purely to really put it across from a point of view that we can obviously take into account what's happened historically, But actually, from a technical perspective, we're stepping into a very different realm here. Now, we don't have the largest data size in the world. We're only going into the fourth halving, right? But no halving before have Bitcoin taken its all-time high before the halving. So it's natural to think that we might see a slightly different dynamic. We also have to remember that the market is a lot more mature here. And we've also had a really, really key event in the Bitcoin ETF, okay? So all of this, right, for me is just something that I'm looking for from a perspective of kind of saying, okay, what can we take on board and what does that do to how we trade it? Well, the good thing for me and how I look at the charts is I don't tend to play too much of that into account, okay? Now, yes, I will factor that in, but for me, I'm looking at this from technical levels, okay? So when we look at this at technical levels, which I'm going to share with you now, this is when we can start to kind of overlay this. And now we want to always take into account any key news, right? But at the same time, we don't want to let that affect how we position ourselves in the market from a technical perspective, all right? Otherwise, what we tend to do is we tend to build in a lot of doubt, okay? Point of the, yeah, I don't think that it's quite that extreme at the moment. Obviously, we do have some pretty serious geopolitical situations and tensions that are rising. Not really going to get into that today, other than obviously we see the effects that these things have on the market, which is, you know, profound. From this point of view, what I want to do is I want to kind of look at what we can kind of gather from this, right? So I don't want to be thinking about too many things that are going to kind of, you know, muddy the water, for want of a better term. I want to look at this from a kind of clean technical perspective right now, and kind of helps us get some perspective on stuff as well. So Bern, good question. Should we take into account the amount of Bitcoin mined and still available? Yeah, I think, look, we've got a few shows that are going to be coming up, and we've got a really, really awesome mining company in the space that are coming through. And they're going to have a chat to us about their kind of thoughts and process on this, because these are things that all need to be factored in, especially obviously by the mining companies. So we're going to have them kind of building up over the next few days as we're going to kind of build towards this kind of like halving celebration. So definitely factors to consider. But for me, when we're looking at anything with scarcity, you know, that's a positive thing for an asset. When you have a depleting asset or a reducing asset base, and then the demand really comes in for it, well, you have, you know, less coming into the market, spike that with more demand, and that's when you can get really big price increases. A lot of people, I don't think, really think about the markets in their purest form, which is that of buyers and sellers, supply and demand. The more demand for a product, the less supply of it, the higher it drives that price up, right? Less demand for a product and the more supply waters it down, and therefore it becomes a lot cheaper. So with that in mind, let's just jump on this, because we've only got about 5 minutes, and then Razum's going to join us and kind of give us his views on this as well. So just starting with a clean chart and looking here on our weekly side, then quite simply for me, this is a healthy correction here. We came in stuck underneath the previous all-time high, which is fine. We've taken these levels out now. As I'm looking at this, I'm saying to myself, okay, if we're looking at this as obviously our recent price leg, we want to split this 50-50, right? Whether you're looking at this as premium and discount, or you're just simply looking at this as a range here, then, you know, it's very natural for these trends to correct down to 50%, all right? So what we're doing is taking them from the low to the high of the recent kind of expansion, yeah? So if we were looking at this here, you could look at this, which was our low, all right? This to the high. And what's quite natural is for price to revisit this 50%. Now, with that, what we're looking for are key areas, and I'm particularly focused on gaps. So it's our fair value gap here, where price can then look to find more buyers or support, however you want to look at it, before it kind of moves higher. So with that theory in mind, for me, this is, you know, obviously on a weekly scale, we're still super bullish, higher highs, higher lows. Very natural for price to consolidate here. And I think that actually price coming back before the halving is probably quite a good thing. Cools off, comes back. I'd love to see it kind of come back to this area here, find some support, and then kind of move on from there. On a weekly scale, however, if we did manage to come down and close below this, then I would expect price to revisit these areas here. We have some inefficiencies down here that are yet to be tagged, and also this low. Now, on a daily basis, so I saved this on here from earlier. Let me pop these on just to save us a bit of time. I'm just kind of looking at the same principles here. All right. So as we look here, we can see at the moment we've come in, we've swept these highs, failed to displace above them. Price has ultimately broken down. We came in and took out this high, all right, like an internal high, displaced below it, set this order block here, all right, change in state of delivery when we close below the body of that candle. So now I'm looking at liquidity targets lower, and basically as it stands, we have this, all right, which is sat down at 61,500, call it 61.5. We then have the price swing low below that. Then what I really do quite like at the moment, if we're looking at aligning this with our kind of weekly bias as well, we have the big weekly gap here. We have these two key levels within this bullish fair value gap. So, I mean, this would really kind of purge a lot of liquidity, reset, you know, a lot of leverage, and then price could ultimately move up from here. Again, keeping this very, very simple, it's difficult. If we close below this daily here, I think we could purge lower, but I would still be careful in this area. I think this is a really, really kind of strong buying zone. Okay. So then just quickly to look at the 4 hour. So the horizontal, sorry, the vertical lines going down the screen are just the session breaks depicting the days. Gio, Tammy, hello guys. Great to have you on the show as always. So looking at this, which is our recent kind of displacement leg down, we can see what happened here is we came back up, tagged 50%. Now, obviously I said yesterday that I was looking for higher prices here. This was again based on this, all right? So we came down into the lower 50% of this in here, took out this low, which was the prior day's low, meaning that it's quite natural to see price kind of have that corrective move higher. I did want to see this in an ideal world. You know, we've got this nice daily gap set up here. It would have been nice for this to come up higher. However, price was actually completely contained by this one. Very, very skinny gap here, all right? But price rejected here, swept this high, and now it's kind of correcting lower. So for me, it's still a little bit treacherous to kind of be shorting from here, but it does seem at the moment like the draw is down. But just remember, guys, you know, it can all seem really, really doom and gloom, but when we do zoom out, yeah, then we can see realistically that we have these nice liquidity targets below that we can come and tag. And actually, it would then give us that nice pullback like we've seen before in previously successful halvings for price to come down, consolidate here a little bit. All right, so draw down into this area, see some consolidation, normally see a sweep of those lows, and then price kind of breaks out. So we want to see this consolidation of a range and then a breakout. And I think that would play in really, really nicely into the halving. So, yeah, good point here from Burn. So miners still hold 1.82 million Bitcoin, showing that we've still got a lot in there as well. And currently around 19 million Bitcoin have been mined and are in circulation, of roughly 2 million left behind. Yeah, exactly. So 21 million supply, and that's a fixed supply as well. So, okay, Adrian, yeah, talking my kind of language here, mate. So could we not take the 65 zone today when New York opens and then down? Yeah, so if you were looking at this, say, on a 4 hour, we could still absolutely see something like this, right? So let me just take the session breaks off for a second, just so it makes the chart look a bit cleaner. So what our friend Adrian here is talking about, and we absolutely could do this, is we have this, it is a very small, but it is still a significant gap here. Now, one thing for me is we pretty much held this, yeah? Okay, so an Elliott wave count. I used to do some work with the group actually with Elliott wave. Not something I employ these days, but like I say, there's so many different ways to kind of play these and trade these markets. So if you're of the ilk that we kind of held this, it's right on the line, right? Then there's still every chance the price doesn't close here, actually comes up, recovers this, looks at this as support, comes up to this level here. Again, that would induce a lot of longs, right? Then realistically, what we would look if we are looking for this kind of to go back deeper is for something like this. All right. Now the market loves to induce long setups to sweep and then catch people on the wrong side of the market, turn and use that liquidity and then go lower. So this is definitely something I would consider. I think I would just need to see this 4 hour candle close above here. Otherwise, for me, this becomes an inversion fair value gap. All right. And with an inversion, we're then looking for that as resistance. And then I think if we're looking at this as a price leg, I would prefer a fair value gap down here. But if we were looking for the low to the high of this, every chance that we're then looking to kind of purge down lower to this area. But we need to wait for this 4-hour close. So without kind of waffling on anymore, I really want to bring Razoon onto the show for us. And yeah, thanks for that input, Adrian. That was really, really interesting. So Raz, how are you doing, my friend? All pumped and ready for the halving?
Yo.
Good to have you on, brother. Always
What's
good
up,
to have
man?
you on.
How's it going?
Good, mate. Good. Just sharing my really nice, simplistic views on the halving and also on the kind of the technical side of it. But, really, really keen to get your thoughts on it, mate. And I know that, we've done a few shows together recently. People have really, really enjoyed them. So I think really I'm going to just try and shut up here in the background a little bit and give over to you and your thoughts. Did you want me to just leave my charts up, or have you got anything you wanted to share, mate?
Yeah, I'm going to share some charts. So share screen.
Awesome.
Here.
Let me get this bad boy off. There we go.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, obviously BTC. This halving situation is we had like 3 of them before. Like, all right. So BTC started in 2009. Okay, and back in that time, the block reward for the miners was 50 BTCs, right? So it means that if you could mine a block of BTC, which happens roughly around every 10 minutes, your reward would be 50 bitcoins.
Wow.
Yeah, and then yeah. So and then it's by the way hard coded in so in the code, if you read it, because I know you're an expert in that regard, right?
That's my
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, in the code there's something that reduces or increases the difficulty of the mining, so that every block is roughly around like 10 minutes. Okay, so every 10 minutes, one miner in the world gets rewarded. All right. And yeah, so it was 50 here, then it reduced to 25, and it reduced to 12 and a half, and no, sorry, yeah, so back when it started it was 50, then it's 25, 12 and a half, 6.25, and it's going to be 3.125 in like roughly 2 days from now.
Wow. Do you know if it takes them the same amount of time to mine a block?
Yes, so there's literally an engine in the code. It's a function that calculates what the difficulty should be for the miners to mine a block. Okay, and that piece of code tries to keep that time at roughly 10 minutes. Okay, so
Nice.
yeah, so there's they have really they have really thought about stuff like this. And yeah, I think I've said it before. I think if there's a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto and BTC is not built by NSA or things that you that people say, yeah, if there's a guy that built this, the guy should at least win a couple of Nobel prizes for this guy. This is just
Sure.
yeah, I mean, it's been like it's been like it's going to be about like how many years, like 15 years, right, since BTC has launched, and like nobody have access to anything, and it's working perfectly. It's just a
Yes, man.
masterpiece in terms of the software, right? And yeah, so that's basically what halving is. So the reward for the miners would be dropped 50%. Okay, and this 50% is a genius number as well, because there's this math fact that if you want to reach to a wall, for example, right, and each step that you take, you is half of your previous step, you're never going to get to the wall, right? So they wanted this mining to become a standard in crypto. Okay, because if they didn't have something like this, people would like run a lot of miners, and all the 21 million Bitcoin would be mined sooner than they predicted. So that they put this in the code so that we have this mining thing until like about 100 years, I think.
Very clever, though.
Yeah, and then there's this. It's hard coded in the BTC code that when we reach 21 million, there's not going to be any reward for the miners, but you still are going. Technically, you still need miners for the transactions to go out, but uh, it's just one of the concerns that. One of the things that concerned people about BTC, that if the 21 million BTC is mined already, what's going to happen? I mean, who's going to run a mining
Who
farm?
incentivizes, like what and who
Yeah,
incentivizes miners, right?
yeah. But I think the idea is that look, if like 99% of the mining power that is already in the system just goes away, okay, suddenly,
Hmm.
and technically nothing is going to happen to the blockchain of Bitcoin, okay. so
Hmm.
so technically you can run a node on your like computer, like how it was in back in 2010, right? People used to mine on their personal computers. But right now the hash power is the hash rate is too high and you can't do it. But if all the miners somehow fade away, the hash rate is going to drop and you can still mine BTC with like the lower amount of computing power.
Hmm.
So technically the blockchain would be the same, because I'm sure some people would still start to mine BTC on their computers. So the blockchain is safe, but the price is going to drop significantly. Well, I mean, but these are just the theories that people make when it
Of course.
comes
But
to
it's
the.
very, it is interesting, though, isn't it? Because it does kind of, it's something that I don't think a lot of people really account for, right? Not
Yeah.
again. Speculation's a very different, a very dangerous thing, because we don't really know, do we? But it still makes sense in a lot of ways to kind of prepare for these things if we can.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like if you say like if what happens if 99% of the banks close, like of course it can happen, but you are not going to have your banking records, right? At least
Hmm.
in BTC you are going to there's a way to get access to the network and transactions and stuff. But
Hmm.
we are kind of measuring the value of BTC against US dollar, right? It's just the standard right now. But
Yeah.
I mean, the whole idea behind BTC is that to replace the current banking system, right? At least, I mean, not even for BTC, but for the whole crypto market, right?
Uh-huh.
Um. So yeah, I mean, uh, to be totally honest with you, I think I mean BTC has its own flaws, right? But I haven't seen, at least in the engineering point of view, I haven't seen a better system
Hmm.
that can work like this in a decentralized way. Um, but yeah, I mean, me and you are both technical traders, right? I have this
Uh-huh.
knowledge for back in 2018, 19, that I used to be I used to work in software, and I remember that I read the code for BTC. I run my own nodes, not to mining, but because I didn't have enough hash power, but just to see how things work in there, right?
Uh-huh.
And I did really became a fan, and I kind of left my software background, and then just became a full-time crypto degen, right?
Living the
Yeah,
dream.
so I'm losing money right now because some guy fooled me with his code. But yeah,
Humbling, right?
yeah, sure. Uh, But yeah, I mean, so me and you are both technical traders, right? So
Mhm.
let's talk about the charts a little bit. And
Yeah, I'd really love to get
uh,
your thoughts on this, Raz, for
yeah,
sure.
so yeah, first thing first, I think. Uh, so I think there's this thing going on Twitter, the halving drop,
Hmm.
right? So everyone is talking about the halving drop. Although if you really look at the, I mean, let's skip this one, but the first two halvings, I don't see a halving drop, to be honest. Like this, if you, I mean, this one is like about 3 months before the halving, right?
Uh-huh.
So you see, uh, so
Actually, it's
I
like a minimal drop, right? Either just before
yes,
it or a little, but not really. I think people are looking a little bit more at the next one, right? Where we had that pretty decent purge down, and then we basically hit up only, didn't we, in 2020?
yeah. I know what you mean, because like it's 20% here, like nothing pretty much here. But I mean, this one, a lot of people talk about this is the Corona Black Swan, right?
Yes, yeah,
And
yeah,
if you really remove this from the chart and connect this point to this point,
yeah.
to
It
be
was pretty
honest, you
flat.
can exclude it. But I mean, I'm not a guy to do this, because I think everything is in the chart, and like
Mhm.
uh, you know the technical reasons behind this level being touched and reversed, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's technical. I think that's what's so interesting about mine and your opinion on this, though, Raz. Right? Is that obviously we know we're very fortunate to work alongside a plethora of talented traders who all look at this from very different points of view, from fundamental to on-chain,
Hmm.
to technicals, but on different kind of levels. And people like Burb as well, with his knowledge, all his knowledge of CMT, Jimmy as well. Your NLP coach. But I think from our perspective, it's always been a funny one for me because over the years, a lot of people have kind of said to me, yeah, TA is nonsense. You can't predict the future with TA, blah, 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 which always makes me laugh because it's not
Yeah.
like we're trying to predict the future with it.
Yeah,
We
check
just,
my Twitter's pin to it.
yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, I do. I really, really like that. But it's true though, right? The thing is, what we can see what has happened historically, and at the end of the day, people I think take this too literally sometimes. Like these are just candlesticks that are printed for no reason, just on a random chart. They're not. For
Mm.
me, each kind of point of this is human psychology, right? It's where buyers stepped in, where sellers stepped in, where institutions started buying, where retail was trapped.
Yeah.
These kind of things. There's an old saying, right, that we have in the UK, which is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah. And if you can find a way to run the
Wow.
same mechanisms time and time again, right, to get money out of people or to succeed in something or to do anything, then if that system keeps working, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right?
Hmm.
And actually, things like the feed and your fear and greed index, things like that as well. The reason, or seasonality cycles, the amazing stuff Burb shared recently about
Yeah.
with the almanac and that, with just which is unbelievable when you look at the seasonality cycles and that, with Jeff Hirsch and stuff like that.
Jeff.
It's very, very interesting. But what it allows us to do is it allows us to take these patterns and these points of interest that we see, and if people keep buying at a certain level, then the chances are people will buy there again. And if they don't, and we see that weakness in the market, which we can see in the candles as well, then that price probably isn't being accepted at that level. It's all about supply and demand, right? Meaning that it means that it probably find acceptance at a lower price. So what is it you're looking for at the moment, mate? What are your kind of eyes, or what is your thought pattern from a technical perspective going into this halving?
Yeah. So I mean, first things first. I mean, one thing that you can see on the chart is that before every having event, we had this some kind of a consolidation. I mean, not really a drop.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't. I think this having drop thing is built by the CT. But yeah, you can see by the chart that we create a high, we create a low, okay, we
Mm-hmm.
go up, and there is going to be some kind of a consolidation before the
Uh-huh.
having, prior to the having, or maybe here. I mean, but this whole thing could be one, right?
It basically pumped into it on that one, didn't it? Almost, the drop came after the halving in a term of a
Yeah,
micro, took some key lows, and then just blew up. Right? I think
yeah, exactly.
One key thing I'd love to get your thoughts on, though, which I think is the key differential for this one, is that Bitcoin had never set its all-time high just before going into the halving. Right now,
Yeah,
again,
that's
I know we have a small sample size, by the way, which is why I kind of made that out earlier. You know, we've got a lot of years of data, but we've only got 4 halvings. You know, really doing, you know, you speak to any statistician and doing, you know, setting data sets and predictions based on, you know, 4 pieces of information, or 3 pieces really, and then the lead up to this is really, really difficult to do. But I do find it interesting from a dynamic when we look at that and we overlay that with the Bitcoin ETF, because I can understand how people are thinking this is either super freaking bullish, yeah, as in ETFs made, Bitcoin's pulling back a little bit, let's go. Or how people are thinking, you know, it's set the all-time high, we're due a pullback here, markets are overextended, there's a lot of geopolitical tensions and that are taking on at the moment that can affect the markets. But, you know, it's like with everything, every bull run, every halving cycle, everything, we see the fear come into the market, you see the FUD. How many times did we have like China banning Bitcoin, or the Evergrande situation blowing up and taking the world down, or obviously the unfortunate situations that have happened with Ukraine and Russia, and now obviously escalations with Iran and Israel, right? There's always something going on in the world to put this down. Yet institutions, smart money, these people seem to find a way to buy at these key levels. Then we see these big rips, and then you're the other end of the cycle, right? Where everybody's wanting to buy it, but actually the price is going down.
Yeah. So yeah, I think one of the most important reasons that we created this the high here, okay, is that this drop right here was a little bit too much for the price action, right? So I know there's a lot into it. I don't want to really bore you with the technical terms here and the members, because it's going to be a party, right? But to be honest, I think like let's talk about this. Like this is the high in 2013, right? So this is the high. You see, when we created a new high in 2017, we never really get near to it. Okay, like it's the price is too far, and created the high, did it low, sorry, and then we started in the next cycle. But here, if you mark the previous all-time high, okay, we went even below it. So it's a little bit extended, right? And that, of course, that happened because of all the bad news that came into the market with Luna, with FTX, stuff like this, right? But but me and you know that if markets takes out a lot of liquidity, eventually the move after that is going to be more stronger, right? So one of the reasons that I can point out for why we're getting a new all-time high prior to the halving is that because a lot of people sold here, and this look at this range, okay? This range for me is a textbook accumulation range, whereas this one is not really, right? I mean, you can argue, but I mean, this range is just if you even add volume, aggregated volume. I don't the aggregated volume is not available on TradingView, unfortunately, but if you look at the volume, like a lot of volume, a lot of, I mean, let's say like this, that a lot of retail traders, okay, sold here. Okay, why? The reasoning was we're dropping below the all-time high because everybody was kind of calling 20K is the maximum that BTC can drop to, right? And once again, there are like accounts on Twitter with Hollywood avatars saying BTC is going to 8K. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people I know people who have I personally know people who have sold at 14. Okay, like sorry,
Well,
16.
we all do, we all
Yeah.
do.
So the thing is like if you are the institution, if you are the market maker, if you have access to the data that who's selling, who's buying, what's going on in the market, and you see something like this, you are going to take your chance and start buying, right? And to be honest, yeah, a lot of people sold in this range, and yeah, since there was a huge liquidity grab event, and when like people start buying here, and by things that we can see like CVD, etc.
Mhm.
I think one of the most important reasons was that the liquidity grab or the accumulation back in 2020 was 2022, sorry, was pretty strong. So a lot of people accumulated here, a lot of like retail traders sold, and when we came around here, it was one of the most important resistance levels for BTC price action, right? Price action wise, I mean. Then the ETF news came in exactly here, okay, and we got this move to the upside. And, and,
Mhm.
and and personally, I don't think it's a good way to measure the cycle. Um,
Mhm.
that Bitcoin has to, I mean, is not allowed to create new highs prior to the halving. And like
Mhm.
you said, we have only 3 data points back in history.
Mhm.
So yeah, uh, price action wise, I can explain why we are getting this push to the upside. Okay,
Mhm.
but I don't really want to mix it up with the fundamentals, and how having can affect us to create
Mhm.
new highs. So yeah, for me, this makes sense. And I think right now we are kind of getting the small drop that we were talking about, like 14 20 12%.
Mhm.
um and yeah, let's see what's going to happen afterward.
Mhm. Yeah, sure. I think you raise a couple of really good points there, mate. I think that look, there's a lot of noise in this space. We had someone popped into the chat now, people asking, up or down from here, up or down. It's it's really, really difficult to kind of answer that question because it bases itself on so many variables. Your trading system, your time frame, bits and
Mhm.
pieces like that as well. Solomon K, hello, mate. But it's the fact of the matter is, if you know where the key levels are, and so what Raz has on the screen here, which really resonates with me, right? You're looking at that at the moment as like the red box, that consolidation. Very, very similar for me. I like to see kind of like a range like that for consolidation. Now, for me, again, it looked like a perfect kind of power of three, right? Where you had that consolidation, you see the aggressive dip down, price recovers, and then we get that kind of expansion move, right?
Yes.
And within that, exactly right, like Raz is kind of drawing on there now, right? You see that consolidation, then you see price kind of rip down underneath it, and then you get that kind of recovery. Now, it makes sense to me that price, is always looking for where it can sell back higher up. Now, this looks like it's kind of fulfilled. We've had that original consolidation, prices pumped away. We've had a period of accumulation, another pump, another period of accumulation, and now we've taken out a key high time frame level. I think looking at that, if I was looking at this and this was say a 15-minute chart or something, I'd be looking at this and saying like, okay, I want to take that kind of most recent price leg low to high, and from around sort of 36k up to where the all-time high is at the moment, and then I'm looking at the kind of inefficiencies below that. Yeah, so exactly right, that price leg there and that big fair value gap that sits down there.
Yeah.
I was just sharing that just before you popped on the stream, Raz. That to me looks like a really, really good place. When you then overlay that with the daily and bits and pieces like that, you can see how price could kind of come down into that area. But the truth is, the nobody knows what this halving is going to do. So in terms of sitting back and waiting to be prepared, do I want to see price down in that kind of area? Yes, that's where I think the good buyers are.
Mhm.
But if price runs hot from here, I'm not going to sit there on my hands and then just wait for it to never either potentially return to that. We've got a period of consolidation going on at the moment. Yeah, we're adjacent to the previous all-time high, which is the
Mhm.
consolidation, incidentally, that led to a massive drop. So for me, if price can establish itself over there and start to consolidate in that area, kind of like it's doing now, then it's building a really, really good base to potentially kind of push up from here. Right, we don't have to fill those inefficiencies in the market right now, as we can see in previous price action. But price can come back for it months or years later, or potentially never. So we have to kind of be aware of that. But the thing that I'm looking for, and people keep asking me this all the time, okay, well, we don't want to buy it; it's too high up. I agree. You want to be buying these things on the pullback, but it's also about context. If this is going to show if this is going to show a lot of bullish action from here, if we can build on this range, we can break out of this range and treat this as an area of support, then I think, maybe we are seeing that kind of bigger influx of institutional buyers. Maybe it is kind of, the ETF has had that kind of effect now, where it's on the balance sheet of more kind of, bigger entities, commercial entities. It's certainly not the asset that it was in previous halving cycles as well. It was very embryonic in the early stages. We weren't anywhere near kind of having any regulatory eyes, certainly no kind of ETF approval. So Bitcoin has now kind of matured as an asset, which means that, like other assets, it tends to kind of drop back on that volatility front a bit more as kind of more money comes into the space. It will always be a risk asset, right? But it's seen almost like slightly less risk to it now. So JJ asking for the TLDR on this. Basically, mate, I think I would be looking at the moment for the gaps that sit down underneath this. Depends what kind of time frame you're trading on. I would look to be seeing strength within those gaps, as price starts to come back down into them. But at the same time, if the kind of area and the consolidation that we're in at the moment, if we start to break out of that and then holding the top of that range, not deviating back within it, we want to see that situation where you have these big body candles kind of break out above and then come back down, and then you want to see the wicks to the downside, right? And like Raz is showing there, we had that small consolidation. Look at the way that candle breaks out above it. The body of that candle, the momentum that it puts in, it tells you that it wants higher prices, right? Then price consolidates again at the top of that, runs up a little bit, comes and retests, an inefficiency. And now we're in kind of a bigger range of consolidation. So I think we just want to see price run out the lows below that and the inefficiencies, or hold this area, hold this box where it is, and then say to ourselves, right, well, if we're now going to use that as a base, let's build on top of that and push up higher. I think it's one of those things where it's always a little bit kind of, dangerous to put our predictions onto the market, because we end up wanting so much for them to come true that we can skew our kind of vision for it. So I think if I was looking at this right now, I'd say the consolidation range we're in, I'd like to see the lows run out of that, price come down a little bit deeper, and then to see a very, very big expansive move above it with a lot of energy, like Raz is showing on the current the previous consolidation, by the black line, and then you can see price start to run really hot. But until then, I kind of waiting, and I'm going to be really, really patient. But I think we've got some really interesting people coming on the show in across the week as well. Like in the build up, the next few days, we're going to put on a few more live shows for you guys. We've got like QEX coming on with this amazing Bitcoin mining company. We're going to ask them what are their thoughts going into the halving. No one really is going to be more affected by this
than the miner.
Yeah, exactly. So, the miners are going to be really, really key there. So I think that's what we kind of want to have an eye on as well. And obviously the price action, I think in my mind, there's always this kind of risk. It's like when you trade traditional markets like equities and you have a really, really big news release, like, for example, with FOMC, CPI, PPI, etc. These big kind of news releases, you see a lot of positioning before them. And then you can often see the market kind of take out both sides in terms of wiping out over leveraged traders before it then kind of settles into its pattern. So that's why it can be frustrating. But on these breakouts, if you're looking for a weekly breakout, you're looking for a daily breakout, then it's important you watch those candle closes above key levels, and you want to see high volume going into that. You want to see strong body closes over it, and then kind of move it across. So I see JJ here saying, I think at this point, looking at it, 53K. Yeah, I think that level that Raz has got there is a good point of consolidation. I think price should be holding support there. If it shows weakness there, you could see this thing going a little bit deeper to the inefficiencies below. But in the same vein, we're kind of creating this range at the moment that, if we kind of lose that, like here, so exactly as Raz has done here, right? You've got that point of consolidation. We could very much, as JJ's saying here in the chat, maybe we see that area come down to and tested. And then we get that final confirmation. We never kind of retested that area. I think that could be a possibility as well. But at the same time, if this thing is going to run hot, certainly in my opinion, then the current consolidation that we're putting in, if we see all the lows from that swept, exactly right, and then a real strong breakout above that, maybe the buyers have kind of stepped in early, and that's something. So exactly like Raz has done with the chart here, yeah, we can see that here. We've got this lows. We're very close
And
to it at the
maybe
moment.
this.
And I love that one as well because it's a low, an abnormally long wick, sat down inside a fair value gap, meaning that when buyers stepped in there last time, we can see how aggressively they stepped in, right? So for me, if we take out liquidity below there, I think the market then will be feeling super bearish. Sentiment will have turned, and it's a great place to turn.
Bull flag broken.
Yeah, exactly. And you will see all of that stuff, right? Bull flag, bull flag, halving has a negative effect. You'll see everyone saying, getting out of here, alts will start to get slaughtered. And look, it's not always the case, but very often, if you're looking to buy when most people are kind of puking their assets back into the market, it's often a good place to buy because it feels very counterintuitive. But at the same time, knowing where these levels are, and Raz just has such a beautiful kind of handle of those. I think as we just look at the chart now, for me, there's two things I'm looking at here. I'm looking at that red line at the top and saying, okay, if price comes and sweeps that and we see a strong recovery, I'd really expect price to kind of make its move higher. Exactly right. Steps back in, then we're moving up. Where to? I would still be playing it level to level until I saw a really clean breakout of that range. If price fails to do that, then I think, that prior consolidation is a really, really good point down there around about kind of like 53K. So yeah, I mean, that's what I'm looking for at the moment. So look, I don't want to kind of waffle on anymore, guys. It's been wonderful having Raz on here as well. I know that we've got a really good stream, almost 4,000 people watching this live at the moment, which is really, really cool. But yeah, I think, look, that's where our thoughts are at the moment. We're going to have some really, really good guests coming on the show over the next few days. So please do keep a lookout on that as well. And remember, guys, if you are interested in finding out more about this or looking any more about it, we are going to be having some deals coming up. I know a lot of you have DM'd me lately asking about memberships and deals if we're doing anything for the halving. So we have put something together for you. Dear QBS has banged this together for you as well. We're going to be doing a halving special. If any of these things are interesting to you, trading signals and setups, education, airdrop tutorials, courses for every type of trader, whether it's building algorithmic systems or day trading like Raz and myself, or technical trading, he's a bit more on the swing side, fundamental advanced analytical tools, exclusive market reports, don't want to put you in my bracket there, mate, then you can visit us down in the link in the description, right? You can come along, you can join all of these things for free. You're going to get access to all of these webinars and that anyway. So do enjoy the build up to this because it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, you son of a bitch, Chris. Right. And obviously world-class banter that I'm sure you don't get that anywhere else as well. But look, a big shout out to Raz. Thank you so much for coming on, brother. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. But yeah,
any time, mate, anytime, and lots more to come from this legend as well. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Remember to unfollow Chris Cravens as well, and give that boy a follow for his fundamental thoughts. And do come and drop us a note. We are going to be having these coming on, so do keep in tune with it. And then you can find all the information. It's just down in the link tree, mate. So yeah, get involved, JJ. We all like free stuff. Get yourself in there and then do come and join us. It'd be good to see you guys.
Free BTC in description, guys.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Lure them in. All right, guys, look, have a fantastic week ahead. Do try safe. Obviously, keep an eye on that. Do come back to us and enjoy the halving celebrations. And we look forward to seeing you all around the nest.